Alright guys, so I'm going to touch on these app-based carriers. Good or bad?
Your hustle got to be strong in this industry, as in any other industry.
So any of you that aren't familiar with the app-based carriers, it's basically, they're a motor carrier. They're all legit with motor carrier wise, at least they should be, as far as having their MC and DOT number and all of those things. These apps, though, they've been talked about in other videos before. So these apps are meant to basically help a carrier streamline or be more efficient in getting bids in. So what it's supposed to do in essence is you know, say me as a carrier, I get this app. I have whatever load boards I have. They get filtered through the app. You know, again, this is my basic understanding. They get filtered through the apps and they automatically generate and spit out to any drivers that I have inserted into the app as far as their location and whatnot. Put a certain radius in, put where they're at, city, state, certain radius, and then I can also control what their rate per mile is going to be. So that's for a suggested price on the load offers that they get. Now, these drivers can then counter offer or accept the offer, and then that triggers back to dispatch, when then dispatch basically jumps in and handles the finalized bid to the broker. So it helps, as I said, be more efficient, to where the dispatcher doesn't have to look at every single one, reach out to the driver, or bid on every single one, and you know, gives the driver a little more involvement and all that good stuff. So it's supposed to be more efficient, and I guess they process pretty quickly. So the advantage to that is that the offers can get put back into the broker quicker than, say, you know, somebody doing it manually. Now, all that, it sounds great. It sounds great on its surface as far as what it should be applied to be. So here, in my opinion, is where the negative side of these apps come into play. Is that most of these app-based carriers, or carriers that are using these apps, they will allow you to be a multi-carrier. They will allow you to run multi-carrier. They won't require you to be exclusive. The majority of them, if not all of them, they'll allow you to run with whoever you want. And I understand that getting signed up on these apps may be the simplest thing. Now, just to let any of you know that are doing these apps, and if these app-based carriers are doing them correctly, as I said, they got their MC number, they got their DOT number, and they should be requiring you to run exclusive, and they should be having you put on as a you know, put onto their certificate of insurance as a holder. Now, if those things are being done, they're doing it, is, you know, somewhat legitimately, if they're really paying attention to those things. Now, again, these guys that are using multiple apps, this is where the negative part comes in, is that I don't think most guys realize that, you know, they're looking at it like, oh, if I got 5 apps and I'm throwing in a bid on all of them, that's going to be more helpful to me. On very few occasions, that may be the case. And here's the only way it's helpful, is that out of the 5 carriers that you're using an app through, or 4, whatever it may be, if one of them have a good relationship with the, you know, with the broker that's putting that freight out there, that's really the only time that's going to, you know, be helpful. Other than that, in my opinion, it's all negative for the driver to have multiple apps. Because these apps, you're basically, as I said, you're throwing out 4 bids, 4 different carriers, and all of you guys are fighting against yourself. Like, so somebody's going to cut somebody's throat and come back and be like, and if anybody that's got the apps, tell me if this has happened to you or not. But I'm sure you get replies like, hey, they're countering at this. They're saying, hey, if you match this, we'll give it to you. Okay? You just cut your own throat. Like, you know, you put in 4 or 5 different bids through 4 or 5 different carriers. So all those are going to the same broker. This broker is getting bombarded with all of these simultaneously. Bam! Okay, so what are you going to do? They're gonna counter all of them like, hey, they're again, the broker sees all this, and they're going to use that against you too. They are going to try and get you cheaper. They're going to know that some of these are app-based. They are familiar with how these carriers bid. So if you're with a carrier, an app-based carrier, or a carrier in general, that bids low, like you're getting 70 cents to run a load, 60 cents to run a load, unless that carrier is taking a shitload of it off top and he's bidding the all-in bid way higher, just chopping your end completely to shit, like he's more than likely going low all-in. I believe that these app-based carriers are working off of volume, which means they can shrink their profit margin per load, and they're making up for it in the amount of loads that they book, if that makes sense. So, because as a carrier, you know, that it makes money, like, but you as a driver, it affects you as a driver more than it does the carrier to take a cheaper load. If that carrier has got 30, 40, 50 vans signed on, believe me, he probably isn't cared too much about you with your cheap ass rate. You know, if you're taking 70, 75 cents or something like that. Again, now don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't understand that at times you have to take those. I'm just saying, if these are your rates on a consistent basis, you should be concerned. You should be able to do better than that. You can do better than that. Don't keep accepting that shit rate. And you need to take a really good look at who you're working with, because they may have created their own problem. Because these brokers know what these carriers have bid in the past and what they've been willing to go for in the past. I mean, we have it happen ourselves, as far as we bid something, broker's going to, hey, can you match? You know, and here's the thing, like, this is the frustrating part. Say, hey, yeah, I can match that. Then they're like, okay, we're checking on this. We're going to go with the. What do you mean you're going with that quote? You just asked me if I can match it, man. Like, meaning, like, to me, that's saying you got it. Like, no, I don't want to match that if you still got to go bid it. Like, let somebody else take it. That's how I feel personally. All right, I know I started rambling there. I think I got a little off track. I'm sorry if this video is a little confusing. So the bottom line is that you're cutting your own throat, I believe, by having multiple apps. Again, I can't sit here and say that every single app, you know, carrier that's using an app is shit, because I don't know. I can just tell you, and because this goes back to, I've got older videos where I talk about doing the multi-carrier thing, period. If you're strategic in the multi-carriers you're doing, you know, how you're doing it, you know, it could be beneficial. But, and by that, what I mean by that is, say you find a carrier that's based in Wisconsin. That's where they're good at. They don't really get freight anywhere else. You know, they're good there. It may be something to have in the pocket to hold there, because when you're in that area, or somebody's good in Texas, you know, if they're good in certain areas, then they're probably of use to have, you know what I mean, to do multi-carry. So basically be strategic. Like, hey, you got one guy that's good in this area, that area. Not you're just getting a bunch of them just for the sake of getting a bunch of them, but yet none of them have a niche, and none of them are really strong anywhere. They're just all bidding against each other. So now, like I said, you're cutting your own throat. You know, it might be that the first carrier that sent in the load off of an app has a good relationship with that broker, but the second one, you know, we'll just say the second one, comes back to you and says, hey, will you do it for $30 cheaper? And you agree to do it $30 cheaper, because you're thinking, okay, I think I got this if I'm going to do it $30 cheaper. I haven't heard anything from the other ones. I don't know what the relationship is. I don't know what's going on. So now, guess what? The rate that you initially bid might have went to the carrier that works well with that broker, but you just cut your own throat because they came back and said, hey, will you do it cheaper? And again, I understand. It's like dangling a carrot in front of the driver. I do understand all this. I do understand people's fear, their anxiety. I do understand all this. That's why I try to talk about these things, to help open people's eyes, or help, you know, inform them a little better. And I will say this: if you have something to say that's totally contrary to what I'm saying, and you see benefits in using the apps, by all means, as I said, you know, comment. I'm not closed-minded on this. It's just that I've never used the apps. I can only go by what I hear drivers saying, what I see, you know, as far as brokers talking, which leads me, that part right there, brokers talking. There are brokers that when they see that lump of bids come in at once, like immediately, and it's all the same phone number. You know, it's all the same phone number. It's all the same DIMs. Or all the exact same locations. Like, they're like, nah. They just brush that to the side. And to be honest, those are the brokers I want to deal with. I want to deal with the brokers that are paying attention to what they're doing. I want brokers that are willing to not deal with these less than ideal carriers. You know what I mean? So that's where that can come to cut your own throat, and that can be, at a deficit for you. Because I understand there's a shit ton of brokers out there. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that. And they all are going to do their thing cheap-wise. And guys, again, I know I'm rambling and kind of jumping all over the place. But brokers, again, a lot of brokers are shit, dude. Like, they are some scandalous people. I just had a broker recently. 2 things I wanted to talk about concerning brokers that happened to me recently. And I say these because, for one, the brokers are becoming more and more cutthroat with the way things are right now. Like, because the brokers are also fighting for freight as well. So they're all fighting with each other. Carriers are fighting with each other to try and get freight at certain rates, and the brokers are doing the same thing, trying to get the stuff from 3PL to forwarders or whatever. So it's causing a lot of shit. So anyhow, the first thing is I bid a load, I get a reply asking me, I think I bid like 500, whatever the low was. I can't remember where it was going and everything, but I bid $500. They came back, they said, can you do 400? And I was like, nah, I'm firm at 500. That's, here if you need us. Then he comes back, well, can you do 475? Or 450? Can you meet me at 450? I said, yeah, I'll meet you at 450. Because I believe the driver was in Texas or something and wanted to get him out. So I agreed to the 450. And he comes back covered. And I was like, thank you for your bid. And I said, I responded to him, like, covered? You mean by another truck? And he's like, yeah, it was covered by another truck. Thank you for your bid. And, my thing, I said to him, I forget what I replied to him, but basically, it's like, how are you going to counter me, be dealing with me, but yet you're still, working with others on bids? You know what I mean? Like, and he came back and he said, well, it's basically the first one to agree to it. So just to give you some insight, as a carrier, when we're bidding loads, technically you're supposed to, when you put a bid in for a broker, you're supposed to give it 15 to 20 minutes. We put 15 minutes in our signature with our bid saying, hey, this bid is good for 15 minutes. A lot of others expect 20 minutes. So for 15 to 20 minutes, you as a carrier expected to just let any other offers go by. Now, to put more context behind that, is that in my experience, the faster you get to you bid on a load, the better chances you have of getting that load. And that is because these brokers are inundated with a shit ton of bids. So as soon as they see one that's in their wheelhouse, they're more than likely going to go with that bid, quote off of that bid, and not take any more offers. So with that being said, you see a good load that pops up 2 minutes after you just bid that, like, you're supposed to just let that go. You know what I mean? And especially if you're getting responses and you're in communication with this broker and you guys are negotiating, like, you're like, okay, he's locked in with me, so I'm locked in with him. No big deal. So that's what they're supposed to do as well. They're supposed to be dealing with one carrier at a time as well. So that just goes some of the shit they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's the first one, I'm dealing with all these, but yet they'll give us shit if we was to say in the middle of negotiations, oh, hey, sorry, that truck's booked now. They would throw an absolute shit fit, and they would more than likely be petty about it and not want to work with you for a while, or if ever again. So it's definitely a double standard there. Now, the second incident that I had lately is, so I had a driver in Michigan. I had pre-booked him a load. Well, yeah, it was pre-booked for Sunday. I had a load for him picking up Sunday morning at like 10 o'clock in Indiana. Okay, so this is like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So then a load pops up that's going from Michigan to Louisville, and it's posted as direct. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and bid that. I bid it. I won it. Driver gets down there to deliver it, going to Louisville, going to Ford in Louisville. He gets down there like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and they're like, hey, no, we ain't taking no freight until tomorrow night or tomorrow evening at 5. Obviously, what does that do to me? That does shit for me. Like that puts me in a bind. So I reach out to the broker. I'm like, hey, you know, I've got a load pre-booked for this driver. You know, need to get him unloaded. And they respond, okay, we're checking into it. Hour goes by, message them, and basically by the next one saying, oh, we're still working on trying to get him unloaded. No, they're not. No, they're not. This is like midnight now, and they're not trying to do it. So I handled it wrong. I ain't gonna lie. I handled it wrong, and I know that I handled it wrong now because of how they continued to treat me after this. So with that being said, so what I did is, since that load didn't pick up until 10 o'clock the following morning, I knew that these guys weren't going to unload me, and I really didn't want to turn it into a shit show, like basically make them do something and cause a big hassle for the night. So anyhow, so I just went ahead and contacted the other broker, let them know, like, hey, you know, unfortunately, got this situation going on. We're not going to be able to cover this load. And so that was that with that carrier. That carrier was cool, understanding about it and everything, fortunately, or broker. So now my driver gets unloaded the following night at 6 o'clock. So this is about a total of about 19 hours, I think, altogether that this driver sat. And I had to give back a load. So I emailed them after he's unloaded, say, hey, you know, need a new rate con, need money covered for the layover and detention. Don't even get a response Sunday night. Monday morning. And I didn't get too frustrated with the Sunday night thing, just because a lot of these brokers don't have much going on the weekends. They ain't really, it's just kind of, it's not manned very well during the weekend, a lot of these. So I figure Monday morning everybody's going to be in. So I email Monday morning. Same thing, need an updated rate con. Don't get a response. A couple hours go by, email again, don't get a response. So an hour or so after that second one, I called. And I spoke to the broker directly, the agent directly, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna need need this updated rate con. And he's asking, what did I ask for? I told him what I was asking for, and he's like, oh man, I don't know if our customer's gonna give anything. This customer don't really ever pay. And again, I'm more of try to deal with things constructively. But in all honesty, this is probably this is a spot where I shouldn't even say probably. This is definitely a situation where, in hindsight, I should have gotten shitty with them, honestly, because I gave up a load. My guy sat all this time, and you guys are just brushing it off like it's fucking nothing. And you're going to tell me your customer. I don't give a shit about your customer, because I'm not dealing with your customer. I'm dealing with you. You should come out of your own pocket. Even if your customer won't cover you for it, you should come out of your own pocket for it. And I'll let you guys know who this is. This is PAR Logistics. Whether we get another load from them or not, I honestly don't give a shit. Like, honestly, I personally will not even bid another PAR load. That's me personally. Like, that situation was that shitty, and that just goes to show you what a lot of these brokers think of the driver, of the carriers. Like, they are just absolutely do not give a shit. So this is Monday, as I said. Each day, emailed. I didn't finally get anything until Friday, and what I got was $180. That's what I got from them. And to be spun for that long, and to get that little bit of amount for what I sacrificed, for what my driver sacrificed, is just unacceptable. And that's with them no more. I will not mess with them at all again. And again, I think sometimes, unfortunately, I've talked about how this industry is kind of cutthroat, and this is just kind of some examples of it. And I don't really like to have to be confrontational, because I want to work cohesively with people. I want to find people that's going to respect me like I want to respect them, that take pride in what they do the way I take pride in what I do. And it's just really hard to find in this industry. And so I try not to be too confrontational about things, but like that is just shit, man. It's absolutely shit that happened. I don't respect that, and I don't want nothing to do with that again. I have one more thing that I dealt with a broker recently that I wanted to talk about just came to mind. So I bid a load a few days ago, and on the load board, it was listed as pick up ASAP, deliver direct. This was on Sunday. No, Saturday morning. And I had a driver in the area. I bid it. They're like, okay, yeah, we're going to send it over. They sent it over. I'm looking at the Raycon. Now, mind you, just so you know, this is a trick that brokers will play on the load boards. They will put things as pick up ASAP and deliver direct, and they're not. So you have to be mindful of that. I've been burned by it before. I almost got burned on this one too. But so I checked the Raycon, and it's mostly the deliver direct where they get you, is where they try to lie. Usually it's an ASAP pickup, but the direct is where they usually are fibbing. And so when I opened up the Raycon, I looked specifically at the delivery date and time, and I seen that it was for Monday. And I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna work. Like, the whole reason I'm bidding this is because it's a direct. You know, I'm trying to get my driver. My driver had a shitty week, and I'm trying to salvage my driver's week, and I don't want a Monday delivery because that won't go on this week's pay, and so I didn't want it. So I told him, I was like, hey, if this ain't a deliver direct, or I was questioning about the deliver direct. My driver called me. Actually, my driver's the one that caught the pickup time. So she calls me and she tells me how this is set for a Monday pickup. I'm like, oh shit, no, that's no go for me, no bueno. It was going to a good area and the rate was good, but as I said, I was trying to salvage the weekend. I was trying to salvage that week, and so I told the broker, like, hey, no, you got this listed as an ASAP delivered direct, and it's this Raycon saying Monday pickup and delivered direct on Monday. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested. Like, because the only way I'd have been interested if they would have given me money to sit for 2 days, to hold my unit for 2 days to pick that up. So that's what it is from my end. So didn't get that load. But that's the kind of shit they do. I was waiting for them to say, hey, change the posting, because they'll do that real quick. Like, they'll go change the posting real quick after they got somebody on the hook. They'll go onto the board and they'll change the posting, counting on that you didn't screenshot or any kind of, put down the information, and they'll be like, no, it wasn't posted as that. And it's like, you send them a screenshot, and it's like, oh, yeah. So I had that already. I screenshotted everything. Now, they did repost it, but he didn't try to lie to me or try to say that he posted it differently. That's the only good thing that he didn't do. He just was like, okay, no problem, and moved on. But it's just crazy, because that's the kind of shit you gotta be leery of, man. You gotta be watching out for, man. Like, these brokers, they are getting grimier and grimier. And don't get me wrong, like, there are some really great brokers out there too, like great brokers with great agents. Like, so don't think that I'm just trashing on all brokers. But any of us that are dealing with these brokers know that there's more bad brokers than there are good. In my opinion, like, anybody that's a carrier that's dealing with brokers, you tell me if I'm wrong. Because I can guarantee you, it's been harder to find respectable, good brokers than it is to find shitty ones, man. Like, some of these, I'm not going to get too much into it, but, like, there are some brokers out there that you would think are good, and you hear about a lot, and they are some grimy, cheap-ass mother truckers, man. So, guys, be mindful. All right, I've rambled way too much in this video. So, let me jump off here. Yes, I'm even looking at my damn emails as I'm sitting here doing this video. So, all right, guys, I'm out.
Your hustle got to be strong in this industry, as in any other industry.